G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here with the conclusion to the clip regarding the terrorist attack in Woolwich in London on the military individual who got run over and then chopped up and beheaded. Previous clip ended abruptly when the battery decided that it was fully charged, and when it ceases to charge that automatically pauses the mobile phone's camera, and of course I'm looking at the lens so I don't know that that happened until I got finished talking and bingo, missed the end of the movie. So here's what I was going to say, what I did say, and I'm going to say it again. Earlier on this morning the coverage was a bit less filtered and the old-fashioned ABC desire for accuracy was throbbing, and the coverage included an interview with a man who made the first phone call to the emergency services because he saw the car leave the road, run over the bloke on the footpath. Car stopped, two fellas got out, bent over the bloke. He thought they were helping with first aid resuscitation, then he realised that they were using knives and they were stabbing him, so he made the call saying, "Pretty please send some armed police," and 20 minutes went by, and during the 20 minutes at least one, and I think it might have been two, English housewives, motherly types, middle-aged women, on their way to do something else entirely. One got off a bus and one stopped her car, and they got out, and the one who was a first aid officer in the Girl Guides or Brownies, she went over and started trying to give CPR while the other fellas were cutting the English police military person's head off. So when she noticed that these fellas had knives and guns and a gun, that's when she stopped trying to do CPR. But she still tried to talk them out of it. And while the police, now in England the theory is you can't be more than about 3 minutes from a policeman, because such a small place and people so thick on the ground and police stations are so close together and whatnot. But anyway, yeah, 20 minutes, and little old ladies trying to talk them out of being stupid, saying things like, well, there's only two of you and pretty soon there's going to be a whole lot of police with guns, like, does it make sense to stay around here? And oh yeah, these fellas were right here to stay in there. I think they assumed they'd get suicide by police, by just running at the cops with guns. They figured they'd get shot and killed. They probably didn't plan on having to go to court after being in hospital. But for those of you who have doubted my theories about it is better to be non-resistant, I point out that in the face of people with knives and guns, it was the little old ladies who went and tried to render assistance and were friendly and impartial to everybody on all sides. They were the ones who come out looking like the heroes. The whole British anti-terrorist organisation looks like it's in reactionary mode, catching up with the dur factor. We didn't know these people hated our guts, and of course they're trying to somehow portray themselves as being worth their money. They didn't know it was going to happen. When it happened, they got beaten by the housewives with handbags brigade, Johnny on the spot, and yeah, they succeeded. The best thing that they did, what they really pulled off well, was they didn't shoot them dead. They only shot them wounded. So they're going to get to find out what the story is. But yeah, I'm pretty glad to live on the very outside edge of a society that I don't fit anyway, because all of the normal people are living in big clumps where people are doing crazy things to express their discontent with the way things are going because of what their ancestors have done before them. Anyway, that was kind of the concluding thoughts to the idea of the military mincemeat chopped up on the Woolwich pavement by apparently Al-Qaeda wannabes of the Sunni Muslim violent tradition. And I've got to say, I don't understand this embracing of violence by Muslims who say that they follow the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, blessings be upon him and all that jazz, because he said that you have to follow the teachings of the prophets who went before him. Particularly, and he names them, Jesus, John the Baptist and Moses. And Jesus said, turn the other cheek, judge not thy fellow man, the meek shall inherit the earth. And Moses said, thou shalt not kill. So there's no possible way that any serious Muslim can put their faith and trust in violence, because it goes against all the teachings of all of their scriptures. So these are people who are apparently bedazzled by paying lip service to the God theory, but they actually believe that defending themselves and their ideals is up to them, using, you know, their little hands to have a fight. And the fight wouldn't come to them, so they decided to go to the fight and go and pick out somebody at random because he was walking outside Woolwich Arsenal Barracks, or Woolwich Barracks, and kill somebody for being a soldier. If only it would end here. If only everybody in the world would wake up tomorrow, pacifist vegetarians, trying to be non-resistant, consume as little as possible, pollute and make as little mess as possible, and try and figure out a way to live sustainably in the smoking, wrecking, ruined mess where the biosphere used to be. Oh no, shit no. Instead of that, got to find reasons to fight with each other. When I was at a boarding school at Bowral, there was a thing called the Commonwealth Holiday on Government Money. The Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And part of the plan was for all of these potentates from all around the British Commonwealth to meet in Sydney and then travel overland to Bowral and stay at a resort there, a couple of miles from the boarding school where I was going to. The Australian Secret Intelligence Service was conducting a training exercise, and therefore accidentally a bomb, a small bomb, was left in a garbage tin, and it wasn't discovered and cleared like it was supposed to be discovered and cleared, and thusn't because a garbage contractor got blown up. And therefore Bowral, where I was as a teenager, came under effectively martial law. There were 4 soldiers at every intersection in Bowral. There were guards on every road bridge. There were guards on every railroad bridge. There was a fucking tank on Mount Gibraltar overlooking the town. Roads and Traffic Authority, or DMR workers as they were called in those days, who were planting trees on the freeway, had to stop and dig them up and prove there weren't landmines in there, because the Indian Prime Minister refused to fly to Bowral. He was going to go overland by rail. The original plan had been for a railway train, load of CHOGM attendees. But they cancelled the train journey because of the bomb at the Hilton Hotel, and they decided that the Indian fella was going to go by land anyway, so therefore they had to put the army in. As a kid, I borrowed a push bike and went for a ride. I got blown off the push bike by an Iroquois helicopter, flying with its body hanging between the trees and its rotors clipping the trees on either side of the road, and there were door gunners on the Iroquois. I don't know whether they had any ammo, but all the ammunition pouches on all of the infantry were empty, and they had no magazines in their SLRs, which is what the Australian Army had at the time. So I know how much force you have to put into a little town of 3,500. I think they had a couple of thousand troops camped on the golf course. To actually guard everything that you could possibly think of that might need to be guarded takes more people in uniform than any nation possesses. So there has to be a social contract between the government, the police, and the people who are governed and policed. If you suddenly introduce the possibility that random citizens are going to start chopping each other up for political purposes on the streets, fuck, everything devolves very rapidly from there. Very, very rapidly, because there aren't enough unemployed buffheads in the world to pay them to be cops to guard everything that needs to be guarded. So I really fucking hope they sort this one out. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.